Lesson 43 Use Layout Effect. 1. Introduction. Good morning, afternoon. Today we're going to explore an important tool in React's hooks arsenal, useLayoutEffect. This hook is specifically designed for addressing layout-related concerns in your components. That is, scenarios where you need to measure or adjust things before the browser paints the screen. Understanding when and how to use it will help you avoid visual glitches, ensure smooth user interactions, and maintain performant components. 2. What is useLayoutEffect? At its heart, useLayoutEffect is a variation of the more commonly used effect hook, useEffect, but with a crucial difference: it fires before the browser's repaint. That means when you call useLayoutEffect, React will execute the effect setup logic immediately after rendering but before the browser has updated what the user sees. That allows you to read layout information, size, position, bounding rectangles, or perform mutations tied to layout, and then synchronously adjust states so that your component appears correctly from the first paint. 3. Why would you need it? Most components don't need to worry about layout measurement. They just render their content and let the browser handle positioning and painting. But sometimes you build features like tooltips, popovers, animations, or dynamic overlays that depend on knowing how big something is, or where it sits, or whether it will fit in a certain place. In those cases, you might need to render once to get the initial dimensions or position, then immediately re-render using that information to place things correctly, and you want this process to occur off-screen so the user doesn't perceive a flicker or misplacement. 4. How does it work conceptually? Here's the flow. The component renders the first time, perhaps with default or placeholder measurements. Once the DOM is updated, React executes the useLayoutEffect callback. Inside that callback you can synchronously read layout metrics, for example from a reference to a DOM node. Then you may update state to reflect your new measurement or layout decision. Because you updated state, React schedules a re-render. That second render will display content with the correct layout. All of this happens before the browser paints, so to the user it appears instantaneous and correct. By contrast, if you use the standard effect hook, the browser might paint the first render, then you measure, then re-render. The user could perceive a flicker or a jump. 5. What are the caveats or trade-offs? While useLayoutEffect is powerful, it should be used sparingly. Because it blocks the paint, it can hurt performance. If many components perform heavy layout measurement or state updates in it, the browser is held back from painting, which can lead to jank or slow responsiveness. Also, this hook only runs on the client. During server-side rendering there is no layout information, so calling it in that environment does nothing. You might even get warnings or ineffective behavior. Another caveat: you must follow the rules of hooks. Only call it at the top level, not inside loops or conditions, and you must manage dependencies carefully. Unnecessary object or function dependencies can cause repeated executions and degrade performance. 6. When should you prefer a regular effect instead? If your effect does not depend on layout measurement or synchronously mutating the DOM before paint, then a standard effect, useEffect, is more appropriate. For example, if you are simply fetching data, updating state based on props, or setting up event listeners, and you don't care about avoiding a visual flicker, then useEffect is sufficient and safer for performance. Always ask, do I need to read layout metrics? Do I need the update to block the paint? If not, don't use useLayoutEffect. 7. Common pitfalls and how to troubleshoot. A notable issue arises when you see warnings like useLayoutEffect does nothing on the server. This often means your component is running on the server during SSR and trying to use layout measurement logic that simply doesn't exist at that stage. The remedy is either to defer the logic to client only, for example using a fallback render that doesn't measure until mounted, or switch to useEffect if layout measurement isn't truly required. Also, handing dependencies. If you reference functions or objects created on every render inside your effect, you will trigger unnecessary runs. Extract those out of the effect or memoize them. In strict mode, React may invoke the setup and cleanup twice in development, so your setup must be safe and your cleanup must correctly reverse what you did. Failing to do so can lead to subtle bugs. 8. Summary. useLayoutEffect is the right tool for layout-dependent effects that need to run synchronously before Paint. Use it when you need to measure or adjust DOM elements in a way that affects how the UI looks right away. But use it judiciously, because blocking Paint can hurt performance and because it doesn't function on the server. If your effect doesn't require immediate layout information, prefer the standard effect hook. Understanding when to choose each will help you craft responsive, smooth, bug-free React components. 9. Closing, next steps. In our next session, we'll look at concrete patterns, how to implement tooltip positioning, scroll snapping, or animations using this hook, and compare side by side the behavior of useLayoutEffect versus useEffect. I encourage you to reflect in your own projects. Where have you encountered visual jumps, flickers, or mispositioned elements? Could useLayoutEffect have helped?